So, Ceal, you were here for a long time. You talked about day one, building the program. What was the challenge? What was one of the bigger challenges as you look back now in building the program to where it's at? Like you said, you're trying to keep the job, you want to stay in Boulder, always recruiting. But by the time you left, the program was so much better.
Well, I think the challenge for any coach in any sport is recruiting. I came from Cincinnati, a large metropolitan area. I could recruit Cleveland, Toledo, Columbus, Indianapolis, Louisville in my car. And pretty much that's what I did, in my car. You know, this was I think I started 1979 to 83, 4 years there, 2 years and I drove my own car. We didn't get courtesy cars in the early 80s,
right.
Driving my car all over Ohio. And the biggest challenge to me was, where are all the people? You know, where do you go to get players? And the advice around here was, you go to Stapleton Airport, which was the old, and you get on a plane and you go to places I was not familiar with. And so my assistant at that time, Beth Burns, who's now at USC, we decided on Texas. That, well, first of all, everybody says, you have to get Colorado kids, you know, get your Kendall Wettas of the world. You have to get your Colorado kids. We got Tracy Tripp, Bridget Turner first and foremost. They were a real good club team up in Denver. We got them to sign, but to fly into Texas as a 28-year-old and not know any high school coaches. I'm naturally shy, you probably don't, and to really have to break into the recruiting networks down there with Jody Conrad and Marcia Sharp down there, it was intimidating, but when you got one.
Felt great, probably.
Yeah, DC Thomas, I think, was our first, or Stephanie Mack out of Corpus Christi, but that was our biggest challenge. And Texas was our first, but we're going to go into Texas and get players.
And now that we're back in the Big 12, we have a lot of schools in Texas, so we've always liked recruiting Texas as well, and tremendous amount of talent down there.
What was interesting, because as you two talked about, it's recruiting, you guys talked as coaches, JR, when you were hired, and the advantages, Ceal, you talked about of now we're going to the Pac-12. From the Big 12, we can go Midwest and we can get all of this West Coast. What happens now? And this is more current events, but here we are. CU's been in the Big 8, they've been in the Big 12, in the Pac-12. We're going back to the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, I think for our program, for our supporters, for our fans, for our alums, going back to the Big 12 is absolutely awesome, because I think there's so many people that have supported our program for so many years. They remember the 4 different times that we won the Big 12 conference. They remember those rivalries and the sellouts and just the excitement of being in that conference. So as coaches, it's really cool because it's a brand new challenge. Every single scouting report is going to be brand new. You know, like if we had to play UCLA tomorrow, we wouldn't even need a scout. Like, you already know what they do, you know what it's going to look like. If we had to play Kansas tomorrow, I would have absolutely no idea what that game's going to go like. And so I think it's really exciting, for our community, for our supporters. It's going to be really fun.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked you. What's the biggest challenge? And again, you're going into your 8th year.
9th.
Right. Oh, right.
Yeah, going into 9.
Into 9.
Yeah.
When we talked to you on the 100th anniversary of Colorado basketball, what's the challenge? What's been the challenge so far?
Yeah, I think it hasn't really changed since Ceal took over at CU. It's all recruiting. The last 5 years, we've had some seismic changes in collegiate athletics. And so I think that in and of itself is probably the biggest challenge, just maintaining the ability to be nimble, maintaining the ability to learn and understand new processes and how things are going to go, while still remain very true to who we are, what we're about, how we operate, how we do things. I mean, I don't really think it's that hard. You just have to sort of stay in the loop and be real diligent about what we're going to do and what we're going to be about. But that's probably the biggest challenge moving forward.
I'm excited to go back to the Big 12 as well. I mean, there's so much history there, although the Big 12 is different from when you coached. But at the same time, I remember that, and we played K-State last year. Mm-hmm. We're in the Midwest. I can't believe how many CU fans end up showing up. When I first got this job years ago, I'm going into year 10, we were in Iowa. How many CU fans show up out there? And I thought we were Pac-12 and all of this. And obviously I remember the Big 8 days of Colorado and things like that, but it's amazing. We've got fans that stay with us that year after year after year. Did you have that when you first got here, Ceal? Or did you watch that kind of build?
The fan base grew.
Yeah.
Over the years, and I think it really exploded. I mentioned Bridget Turner, Tracy Tripp. We had a solid class. Crystal Ford was our first Kansas City kid that signed with us in 1986. Gretchen DeWitt from Indio, California. When that team went on a roll, and I had nothing to do with it, Bridget's father got mad at the team one night, and he said, can I have a word with him? Well, she was our point guard, and I was at wit's end. We had lost to Ohio State, and we shouldn't have. It was at home.
Okay.
And they, it was right after Christmas. Our players, they just didn't show up.
Yeah.
They kind of going through a little too much turkey. And he said, I don't think he really asked. I think we used to do the booster club over in where the nutrition bar is.
Okay.
And he walked in, and they're all eating popcorn, and they're you know how you are when you lose. Back then they could mingle with the boosters. Well, Ernie Turner, who had played at New Mexico State, he let them have it. We went on a roll. We won 22 straight games.
Oh my gosh. You need him on staff.
David Platty's sending me, we're breaking records. I was like, don't say anything. Don't. But it culminated with our first sellout. And what I like to, probably what I'm proud of, the first sellout in the building was a women's game. It was a women's game.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it's funny because to this day, every single recruit that comes to campus, we tell them that.
Yeah,
the first sellout in this building was a women's basketball game.
It was and that was 1989. It was a women's game. And that was that was a point where if it happened once, it can happen again. I think when you see it, and it happened, and I would say 2 of the starters were Colorado kids. It just kind of reinforced we have to get the in-state kids, and then bolstered that lineup with Crystal's from Kansas City and Gretchen's from California. And when we talk about it, it feels like it was just yesterday.
It's amazing. There were some lean years here between when you were coaching and JR, when you showed up. You had a sellout last year, had great crowds last year. Yeah. It's back. How did that happen?
Knock on wood.
I know.
Don't
I've heard the superstitious. I'm like, you don't talk about it.
Don't talk about it, I know.
Right.
How did that happen? I think, tremendous leadership, as I've said a couple times, with our administrators, and just being very supportive, trusting that we had a plan and a process and that nothing would happen overnight. We were committed to building our program back the right way. We weren't going to take shortcuts or cheat or do anything, and our administration knew that. So being patient with our ability to slowly climb the ladder, very difficult to do in a conference as strong as the Pac-12. We were able to turn some other programs quicker, but the Pac-12 we knew would be really difficult. Just because as we got better, guess what? So did UCLA, so did Oregon, so did Stanford. Everybody kept getting better, which made it difficult. But I think just recruiting the right players that want to work hard, be great teammates, be about the right things. Finding people that were really loyal and would persevere through the lean years, knowing that the first few years were going to be really difficult. We were, real honest with the kids we recruited, and they knew that coming in, the Jalen Sherrods, the Frida Formans, those guys. And so, it's been incredible to be able to get back to a place. I don't know, we still haven't been doing Elite 8, so we're not exactly where we were, back in the 90s, but we're definitely striving for that greatness.